Okay, so here we are, and welcome to Alice and Janie. And theoretically, we're now live on Facebook and Facebook Paris Set Me Free, which is I'm Sab in Paris, known for various things. One of them being taking Paris street photographs and publishing a creative photograph of Paris every day. Actually, at the moment, been doing that for nearly 2 years. And also, we're on YouTube. On a YouTube channel that I haven't used for a while, probably called Paris Set Me Free as well. And so I'm testing the system. So fingers crossed. Here we go. Many years ago, I used to do mini critiques of Paris street photos. So this is sort of me coming back. So it's kind of strange to be back. Anyway, Alice and Janie, you did a photo tour with me in Paris recently. Thank you so much. It was great. What are your memories from that?
We had a wonderful time. We had an introduction to Paris, and at the same time, we learned a little bit about
my camera and your iPhone.
Have you got your camera there?
It was terrific, and we've told everyone about it.
That's nice, yeah. Yeah, so you actually had the two ends of the photographic spectrum. You had a super fancy camera, which was the Nikon D850, something like that.
810.
810. Okay, I used to have an 800 many years ago, and that was before I kind of fell into the iPhone bath. It might sound kind of strange that I now almost exclusively photograph on the iPhone, but to be honest, my biggest problem was that I was in Paris. I'd see a nice photograph, and I wouldn't have a camera on me. And then when I realized that I could use my telephone, which is actually, it's a very, very nice phone, and it actually took pretty cool pictures, I kind of dropped my big fancy camera. But also, there's another side to that, and that is that I have always, for like more than 30, 35 years, I've always believed that the photograph is not made in the camera or even with the camera. It's made in the person's head. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, if you go back to the classic the classic photographers of Paris, Willy Ronis and Doisneau, people like that, the classic black and white photographs of Paris, what did they have? They had a simple black and white film camera with a fixed lens. Mm-hmm. And we think of those photographs as classics. So this is actually much, much more sophisticated than that. Yeah, so basically, I do take most of my photographs on that, so it's nice to get my hands back on a fancy camera again. Yeah, so there's two ends of the spectrum. You had the really fancy camera with lots of buttons and stuff, SLR, and then you also had a phone like that. And for me, I don't really mind because it's there, it's there that the photographs start for me. What do you think of what I just said? Does that make sense to you?
It does, very much so. In fact, I've been using my iPhone a lot when we're out in the fall with the colors are fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm using the iPhone a lot.
It certainly is more mobile than carrying a camera around.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, the quality is great, and it's up to you to develop your eye, really. Where are you based again? Remind me and the viewers where you're based.
We're in near Chicago. We're in a suburb of Chicago.
Right. So the colors there, you're in the middle of autumn right now, are you?
Yes, they're vibrant. They're just beautiful this year.
We just had a windstorm that came through on Monday or Tuesday, so that has taken some of the color away, but it still is, pretty brilliant this year for some reason. It's nice. Lots of reds and golds.
Well, let's hope it's not thanks to the pollution or global change,
Good point.
Sometimes when they say, there's beautiful sunsets these years, and sometimes the reason isn't so cool. Anyway, let's jump into some photographs. So what you did, one of the skills of let me share my screen with you. This is about the best as I can do for the moment, so you can kind of see the outside of this image program. I'm sorry about that, but that's where I'm at the moment. What was I going to say? I don't know what I was going to say. So just jumping in to having a look at these photographs. Yeah, that's it. When you're showing your photographs to others, I remember my granddad once. This is kind of my base point is my granddad showing me photographs of his trip to the mountains about 60 years ago. Well, not 60 years ago, but when I was a teenager, and he showed me his trip to the mountains. And he showed me about 300 photographs of mountains, and they all look the same. And I've never forgotten that moment. So it's a true photographic skill. If you want your photographs to be appreciated more, irrelevant of what they're actually like themselves, show people a smallish set of really good ones with no repeats. So I asked you to do that. I asked you to give me between 20, 25. So you gave me 40.
Oops.
It's fine. It always happens, you know. We fall in love with our photographs. It's incredibly difficult to eliminate them. They become our babies. But anyway, so let's have a look. So I'm showing 3. I didn't necessarily respect the final 40 that you gave me, okay? Because there were some in the others that I liked as well. So here are 3 metro shots. This one, and this one. They're not all to the same scale, but that's as good as I can do. Right, give me your comments on the Paris Metro signs there, ladies.
The first one,
This
I
one?
really like because it brings in the trees that are there, the buildings, and of course the metro sign. But the second one tells you more where you are.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tells you more where you are. And the third one I thought was a little too light in the background.
Third one tells you where you are too.
Right. Yeah. So I'll give you my comments on those, and there's a million things we can say about them. For a start, for example, the lightness of the background was to try and get the metro sign looking red, you know, because it's a beautiful red. And against the white background, which wasn't really white, it was looking very dark. So if we were together, I think we were together, we made it. I'm just gonna put these on actually, just in case there is an echo. I don't think Leo will mind too much if he misses out on what you're saying. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes.
And I can hear you. Okay, yeah. So what we did here was the metro sign. The red of it was very dark, and it's a shame. You know, you're losing both the nice redness of the classic metro. You know, Paris metro signs are red, these sort, and it wasn't very red. It was almost dark, moving towards black. So we bumped it up. We increased the exposure, which of course made the buildings behind very light. So what can you do? You could have put a blip of flash in, a tiny blip of flash, which would have lit up the sign a little bit, but wouldn't have reached the buildings. It's funny, sometimes you see people taking photographs of the Eiffel Tower with their flash on, thinking that a little camera flash is going to light up the Eiffel Tower. No, they're not actually. They just forgot to turn it off or didn't realize it was on. But it is kind of funny. Anyway, yeah, so that's one thing you can do, a little blip of flash. You can always move around a bit as well, you know, and get rid of that particular background. There's a bit of leeway. You can move around. By the way, when I start talking about photographs, I get sort of verbal diarrhea. So feel free to jump in and say, whoa, you know.
Well, I think the thing that we enjoyed the most was that we took artistic pictures and tourist pictures. And we still to this day define what we're taking, because you have to take some tourist pictures when you're traveling, but the artistic pictures made us smile more, and we love them, and we're going to put many of them on the wall in our home.
I often start a tour or any sort of discussion on photography, especially street photography, by saying there's one very, very simple way to make your photographs much better or much more interesting, let's say, than a typical tourist shot. And that's don't do what tourists do. And the typical tourist, I mean, there's a lot of people that are really good at taking good photographs these days. But let's say the typical tourist will see something interesting often it's a classic monument, which has been taken a million times before. They'll raise their camera to their eye height and they'll press the button. And what do you get? Well, you get everything that was in front of their eyes, including the monument, probably, other tourists' heads, trash cans, lampposts growing out, all sorts of stuff. So all you have to do is anything apart from that, and you're already moving into more interesting territory. So let me give you a one-off comment on this. Okay, now this is an example. You can see the red isn't particularly red. But it's more natural. The lighting seems more natural. This one almost seems artificially bright. I don't think it is. The signs are lovely and bright, so it's a shame if the photograph ends up not showing how nice they are. I'd say that's actually a little less red than it is in real life, so something has happened there. Maybe it's slightly underexposed, but you do get a lot of nice detail. Something you can do, not to cheat, but to simply, I do very little post-processing unless it's artistic stuff where I go over the top. But say for example, I just want this to be read like it really is. Then I would do probably something a little bit like this. Let's see if this works. Okay, so you're getting a little bit closer to the red that it should be, and then you can always again, this isn't supposed to be cheating, it's supposed to be just making it more like it was when we saw it in the first place, a tiny bump of saturation. You should see that getting a tiny bit redder there. Oh, hang on. Yeah. Okay, so you see what's happened. It's not over the top, but it's kind of punched it up a bit. It looks a bit better than it used to. So that's about as far as I'll go. Now, one other thing I will say here is, and this is something that a lot of people on the tour, when they come to see me in Paris for a tour, they will have a beautiful camera with lots and lots of buttons. I mean, literally up to like 50 buttons. And the dial on the top, I call it the green one, the green setting. There's often one of those fancy dials with all those strange letters on. There's a little green dot at one of the settings. And that's the sort of, standard. Don't do anything, just try and take a nice photograph. And it normally does, but you're missing out on so much. For example, here we put it onto the aperture priority, which basically means you pointed at the thing in the foreground, which ends up being sharp, and the background goes fuzzy, and it's absolutely beautiful. You like the effect here?
Very much.
And you can play with the setting to make the background, this building and the tree leaves fuzzier or less fuzzy. So the aperture, the smaller the number, like 5.6 or 4 or 2.8, you put it on that, and the background's going to be really fuzzy. You put it on F11, they call it, or F16 or F22, you're going to have the metro sign sharp and the building sharp. So that's my number one tool out of everything. If I could do a whole photo tour going around Paris for 4 hours with one technique only to make people's photographs better, it would be that. Use the aperture setting and make the background fuzzy.
That's what we did, mostly.
Yeah. There is something to consider there, though, and that is sometimes you don't want the subject in the middle, so you put it off to the side, but the camera might decide that the background is the thing that it wants to make sharp. So that's kind of, you have to have a technique for making what you want to be sharp, even when it's not right in the middle of the frame. So there is a thing called spot focus, and I normally choose spot focus, which is basically you find a spot, and the most logical is the spot right in the middle of the viewfinder, and you make that the focus point, and you simply point that at the thing you want sharp, even if so you put it in the middle of the frame, press it halfway down normally on a Nikon, hold it halfway down, recompose, and then click, and the thing that, Have you been practicing with that at all, or?
We did this last week going out for the colors. We were, I didn't remember how to do the spot focus, but that's what I needed to do. And it was focusing on 3 spots or something. And so I had a little trouble doing that, but it's what we learned with you.
Yeah.
Was the composition with spot focus and the aperture and S.
Yeah, my go-to street photography settings are aperture setting with a small f number. That's the aperture number, a small f number. So like 5.6 or 4 or something low, which basically automatically makes the subject sharp and the background fuzzy. That's my default setting, because that immediately makes your photographs amazing. You know, the subject is sharp, the background is fuzzy, it doesn't interfere with the subject. That's already great. For the focus, you've got to find out how to do this. Somehow you need to find that one spot. There's a part of the focus settings, you can actually literally choose one little spot in the middle.
Right.
That's the one you want to set it on, because then you just point it at whatever you want sharp and recompose, and it becomes an automatic sort of gesture, like, you know, like raising a fork to your mouth, depending on how you eat, I suppose. And then the other thing that I think I mentioned, which is really, really useful, is the exposure compensation button. You know, that plus minus button?
Yes, I've used that more than I ever thought I would.
Yeah, I mean, basically, and don't worry about pixels, they're kind of free. So take a shot, you see something nice, just take a shot and look at it. You know, immediately you think it's too dark or it's too light or it's okay. And if it's too dark, you hit that little plus minus button and you put it up. You will very, very quickly get used to how much you have to put it up. Give it double the exposure, or if it's too light, give it half the exposure, and very, very quickly that becomes automatic. On the iPhone or on a telephone, you can do something similar. You actually press, you're looking at something, you press the screen on the thing that,
Sorry.
yeah, you press the screen, or you touch the screen on the thing that you want to be properly focused, and that it'll refocus on that. And then if you hold the finger down for a while.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, and the way.
But the computer kept going.
Yeah, so on the phone, normally, on the iPhone at least, you press the screen, you touch the screen for a minute, and it'll bring up this little scale. So you focus where your finger was, but if you keep your finger there, you get this little scale, and you move that scale up and down, and that changes the exposure. So you can do it on the phone as well. Okay, anyway, let's get off this. So that's nicely central. Some subjects, the subject should be off center. That's one of the key things for not making it, a bit more interesting, a bit more visually pleasing. Get the subject off center. But in this case, it's fine. You know, the subject is the metro sign. If anything, the word metro is off center. You know, it's not in the middle. It's below the middle line. And it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, no worries there.
It's also at just a bit of an angle. It's not square on.
Yeah, and you know what I think of angles?
Yeah.
Yes,
I am Mr. Angle, yeah. You could look at any of my photos, my grids of photographs, and you've got to search for the one where there isn't a bit of an angle. So that's, you know, it's not for everyone, and it's also, you've got to be careful with it, because if it's too much of an angle, or it looks like there's a fine line between having an artistic angle, because who says we have to take photographs like that? That's the tourist shot, if it isn't blurred. But there's a fine line, I find, between the angle telling people, oh, that's an interesting artistic angle they've chosen, and someone saying, yeah, it's a bit nice, but it's a shame he couldn't get it straight. You know?
Yeah.
So that's a definite consideration. You're using an angle, make it look like you meant to. Otherwise, you might have people thinking that, oh, shame you couldn't get it straight. There's another angle. Yeah, now I like this one because you've got the two. You see, you've got the metro, and you've got the other style of Paris metro signs, another style, and it shows you where you are. And you've got the diagonal as well. You see, I love diagonals. You've got the lines of the building and the metro post going one way, but you've got a counter diagonal of the metro, the word metro, and the Saint Michel. It's like a counter diagonal. So you've actually got this kind of thing, which is nice as well. And you could also say that the building behind is too light. Yes, it's overexposed, but if it hadn't been, we wouldn't have got the real colors of the sign, and it would have looked a bit too dark. Alice, you're a fan of lamps and lights and stuff.
Yes, I am, and I've got to get away from that.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I have like 1,000 pictures of lamps. I don't need that many lamps, but they are so interesting.
Well, you know, you can do a collage of lamps, but each one different. Have you thought of that or done that?
As a matter of fact, I have thought of it, but I haven't done it.
Yeah, I would do that. I mean, I do grids of 9, and I can quite easily imagine 9, like 3 by 3, different lamps. You could do something similar, as long as they're not all the same or too samey. So let's have a look at some of these. Okay, just give me one thing that you liked about each of these.
I lined it up so that they'd be pointing at each other.
Right, that's amazing. I really like that. Yeah, because of course they're not. You know, people might think that it's meant to be like that and not realize they're not like that at all. So you moved to get that magical connection between two things which are not really connected. And you didn't have them touching either. There's that kind of tantalizing space in between, which is quite nice. Brilliant. Yeah, I really like that. This one?
I took it at an angle.
No, you didn't.
And unfortunately, one of them is a little broken, but I just liked it. We don't have that many unique lamps, and these are unique. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that you've got the, I think it's probably the Grand Palais in the middle here.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me, did you mean to have that in the middle, or was it just by chance that it wasn't behind a lamp?
I don't remember.
Okay, because I mean, I'd say that's pretty good, and it's something to think about. Those tiny details. You've got Le Grand Palais, you know, the Grand Palace behind, and the most impressive, recognizable thing of it, apart from the sort of roof and stuff, is that thing pointing up, and there it is, slap bang in between two lamps. So
I might have.
well, yeah, I think you probably did. And you've also got this angle of the lamps like that. And the angle of that little tower thing is kind of the same. And you've got the flag and everything. It's just a detail, but I think it's good. And you've used an aperture, which has made the lamps nice and sharp and the background fuzzy. You know, great stuff.
Thank you.
You said, unfortunately, one of the lamps is broken. Have you heard of, hang on. Have you heard of a concept called, I like this because my name is in it, Wabi Sabi?
I can't see it. Go ahead.
Have you heard of Wabi Sabi?
Oh, no.
I've read it on your site somewhere.
Wabi Sabi is, I think it's a Japanese or Oriental concept that of beauty in perfection, of beauty in imperfection. So things which are not perfect are actually, they have more character than things that are perfect. So I would suggest that the lamp with the sort of tape around it is actually pretty cool. You know, there's something about it. There's something about this beauty in imperfection.
Okay.
Otherwise we're talking picture postcards. You know, buy them anywhere.
Makes it more real.
Yeah, that's right. You know, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, there's that. Let's see what else there is. Here's another one.
I just think that's so cool.
Why?
Good enough.
You've got the whatever it is sticking out, holding the lamp. The lamp can be raised up and down with that other cord. I just think
yeah, it can. Yeah. Okay. If you were to change it at all, like crop it, what would you do? If you would, if I asked you to crop it,
I'd cut out more of the building.
Me too.
Okay, so would you do something? What you'd cut? Hello. Well, like this.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, something like that. Image. Something like that, maybe?
Yeah. Because then the lamp and the whatever is holding it is more the focus than the building.
Okay. Yeah, the building only needs to be a strip, a narrow strip on the right. We know it's a building. It's not a big deal. But you need the building to show that the lamp's sticking out from it. But you don't need that much of the building. I would also suggest that, okay, you've got the sky, the lamp's in the sky, but you don't even need so much sky. You know, you could also crop it there.
Okay.
And I think it would still be a strong photograph. And you've also, you know, you've made more of the photograph the lamp and less sky.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could do, like, I'm absolutely not a photograph processing expert, but I've got very, very few things that I use. But you could, again, lighten it up a bit because it is a bit dull.
Right, it is.
You know, you're losing the goldness. There's not much detail in the shadows and stuff. For some reason, yeah. You know, so you could play around with that. Mm. Now, what's happening there? Okay, it was like that. Why is it so dark? Why is the sky gray? Why is everything so dark?
It's probably late in the afternoon.
You know, I think it's because you're pointing up into the sky, and the sky, the camera tries to get like an average gray.
Okay.
So you're pointing into the sky, which is almost white, and the camera's saying, whoa, too much light, cuts down the exposure, but the sky was supposed to be almost white. And so the camera makes the white sky gray, because that's what it thinks is the average of the scene, mid-gray. Mm-hmm. But that makes all the darker, the mid-tone things like the building, makes it almost black. So you might want to take a shot and then say, hit the plus minus button, put it onto +2 and take the shot again. And it'll be much brighter, much nicer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So watch out for that, especially with the sky. Especially when there's a lot of sky in the shot, bam, it's going to be too dark. You can almost automatically put it on +2 when you're pointing into the sky. The thing is that you then forget, and then you take a few more shots, and they're all far too bright.
Will that work with the iPhone too, to do the lighting like you showed Janie?
With the iPhone, the best thing is just to take a shot and see if it's too dark or too light. And if it's too light, touch the screen and then bring it down. You can do that. Yeah. Otherwise, it's too complicated to guess. We don't need to guess. We can literally just take a photo in half a second and have a look. And if it's too light, make it brighter. Too dark, make it lighter.
Okay. All
right, let's move on to, okay, so we've got a few more of these. You know, lamps can be beautiful silhouetted against the sky. That's another, it's another thing to do. Look at this, it's almost silhouetted. Mm-hmm. These beautiful spikes on probably that church near Notre Dame, but not Notre Dame. Saint-Séverine, something like that. Yeah, and I mean, it's gorgeous. If the shapes themselves merit it, if the outline of the shapes is interesting enough, then make them silhouettes, and they speak for themselves. That's a lovely shot. I love it. And you've got the repetition as well. The repetition of those spiky spires. Repetition is a beautiful thing to have in a photograph.
We've been trying to do that more often.
I might have made myself a little lower, possibly move to the right a little.
Okay.
To put more space in between the lamp and that tower. And by squatting down or maybe moving back a little, moving forward, I could have moved the lamp up into that space here, you see? Mm-hmm. So just because there's a huge, all of this, you see? No, I'm not in that mode, hang on. Yeah, all of this, I don't know if you can see that. All of this bit here isn't really doing much.
Right.
So what you could have done is move forward, which would put this lamp higher up. This lamp would then appear up here, and it would fill in that space. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be so close to this tower.
Okay.
And again, decide, do you want silhouettes? Do you want the detail in the church, because it's probably a nice bright day, actually. It's just that you've been pointing into the sky again, which has brought everything down. You see, it's not, when you looked at that, you weren't looking at black silhouettes, you were looking at a normal beige colored church.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you remember that's what's going to happen. Is that what you want?
Okay.
Okay, right. Well, lamps. I'll finish with one classic lamp picture though. Here it is. Do you remember this one? You remember where this was?
That's on the smallest street in Paris.
Narrowly. Mm-hmm.
Narrowest.
Cat who fishes or something.
Yes, the Fishing Cat Street, le Chat qui pêche, le Rue du Chat qui pêche. There's a debate as to which is the narrowest street and what is a street. You know, this isn't necessarily the narrowest, but it's like one of the two. There's another, Rue de Venise, near the Pompidou Center, which is also extremely narrow. Anyway, it's narrow. And you can get this amazing view of 3 lamps going into the distance. It's just beautiful. What do you think of this shot, the way it's turned out?
Well, I tried to get it equal distant on that first lamp between each.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, this might be a personal thing, but I hate it when, for example, if one of the edges of that first lamp had been touching the wall, I'd have gone, why not take a tiny bit of time and try and get a sliver of light on each side of that lamp? And you have. Otherwise, it's a shame. You know, it's just a shame. You've missed an opportunity. That's for me. Unless there's some reason to have the lamp touching, but there isn't. For me, there isn't. And then you've got the 2. You've got the repetition. You see, you've got 3 lamps. Boom, boom, boom. And this isn't all the photograph. Hang on. Okay. What you can also do, you can sometimes get the street level in this shot, and you can have, if you wait for someone walking past, and you just have this sort of black silhouette. There's always people going past. So you can wait for that person who inevitably is going to come. You're just waiting there like this, your finger on the trigger. And that's how you get more, you know, impressive shots. Another professional technique is waiting with an idea in your mind. It's like, for example, you've got a bird sitting on a lamp. Okay, you take a picture, it's a bird sitting on a lamp, a pigeon, big deal. Maybe it's pretty, maybe it isn't, maybe. But if you just waited, maybe a minute, maybe 3 minutes, and you're just waiting. Everything is set, everything, the aperture, the focus, everything, for it to fly away. And when it flies, bam, then you've got a bird flying off, you know, with all the blur, the wings, and it's just 20 times better than just the bird sitting on there. So it's not an issue here because you haven't actually got street level. But if you had street level, you've got the lamps, and then at the bottom, you've still got the black walls, and you've got a person, for example. You'd have a person with their legs like that, which would also be nice. Anyway, enough of the lamps.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Now here you see the set of photographs that you sent me. I wanted to move on to something completely different. Okay, let's look at your Tour de France pictures. Okay. You got one here. Hang on. I'll get rid of a few of these. Right, so hang on. All right, so tell me about this. What was your experience of the Tour de France?
Well, we have hundreds of pictures of that.
Okay.
But this one we picked as one to show because it showed the bikers, it showed the Louvre, showed the Ferris wheel, and the action of the people.
Yeah.
And that's why we chose this one. We have tons with the street and the people and the bikers, but not with the people. That's why we chose to give you that one.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, you can't imagine the Tour de France without the people watching, without the fans, without the people sort of getting in the way and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's for the public. Without the public, I often think this about sports. You know, can you imagine any sport and nobody actually went? There wouldn't be any. There'd be very little point going. So it's amazing. You've got half of the shot. It's literally divided down the middle. And in this case, great, because if you do divide it down the middle, on the right-hand side, you've got, it's almost like two photographs. You've got, on the right-hand side, you've got the Louvre, the end of the Louvre. You've got this amazing big wheel. You've got all the cyclists coming towards you. It's great. You've got the leader here. Maybe he's not the leader, but he's in the lead of here. And then you draw a line on the other side. And you've literally just got the audience. You've got a big part of the building there on the Rue de Rivoli. You've got all these people with their phones like this. It would be really funny to do sort of a competition. You hide half of the photograph and you say to someone, what do you think the other half is? Yeah.
That's true.
That is great. That is really good. You know, it's if you've got the cyclists alone, you just think, oh, there's cyclists. But this shows that you were part of a sort of almost fanatical crowd. I really like that a lot. Okay, I'm going to try and get rid of some of these lamps, much as I like lamps. You know. And the ones I've changed, it's saying, do I want to save them? Get rid of that. Go, go. Okay.
I tried to get a picture of the cyclist with the background blurred like you told me how to do. I was not successful with that. I was only successful with the blur of the cyclist in the back and in
well, I'm gonna show you a photograph that I think is amazing in a second. But I think you had another one of the Tour de France somewhere.
the Tour de France was up higher.
Here's one. No, I'm looking for one from your B selection. Okay, this should be opening something. Yeah, here we go. Okay, here's another one. Now this one is without the
Crowd.
the people watching, and so is this one. This is great. I mean, that's a really great dynamic shot. 4 black-clad guys in a line. Excellent. You like this one?
Yes.
It's great. It's a very strong shot of the bikers, and the background is blurred. The background here.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. You know. Yeah. Again, it's a shot of cyclists. So there's not. Maybe there's a story. I'm not sure, but there's not a very obvious story apart from the fact that these guys are tired and they're struggling and they're going hard. This is quite similar to your other shot, but without the other half.
It's a little more boring, honestly.
Well, given the choice, if I could only have one of these shots in my life on my wall forever and a day, it would be the other one, for sure. Definitely the other one, yeah. And you've also got the composition's kind of, I mean, you could take this bit of sky out and you don't lose much. And you could take this bit of ground out almost to here and you don't lose much. So the composition's kind of a bit complicated. You know, it's a bit sort of difficult. Oh, sorry, I got rid of the wrong bit. That's how I would crop your photograph. That's how I would do it. That's much better. Yeah. No, I mean, I would. I mean, if you had to crop, I would probably crop, but it's awkward because it's neither horizontal nor vertical. You see.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you know, that's fine. That's what happens. You just take lots of shots, and some are good, and some you don't like so much, and it's as simple as that. You know, it's sort of a bit. It's not quite square. It's not quite rectangular. So definitely go for the other one. But let me talk about the photograph, the last photograph of the Tour de France, which I wanted to talk about. This one here.
Oh. Going with the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
This one here.
Before.
So what about this one? What happened here?
Well, I was trying to follow the bikers and get the background in blur, and instead I got the opposite.
Yes, you did. What do you think?
You certainly know the bikers are going fast. It represents speed nicely.
Yeah, you know, I think this is just absolutely stunning. An absolutely stunning photograph. So did you try this panning technique?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, did you focus on like the background beforehand or the ground beforehand?
No.
Okay. So whatever you did, so you sort of went with them and clicked when you thought they were in front of you.
They were just a tad beyond me. Yeah.
So you did something like this. Click.
Right.
Okay. So this is what happened. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. Of course you don't. This is what happened, and I think it's amazing. You've actually got the background is quite sharp. I mean, to all intents and purposes, it's sharp. The railings. You see, no, I don't think you did that because the railings are sharp. If you were moving the camera, they wouldn't be sharp. So basically, this is actually, you weren't moving the camera. You were actually holding it quite still, as still as you could. And these guys zoomed past. And look what's happened. They're going so fast, they're semi-transparent. It's amazing. Where's Leo? Leo, what do you think of this photograph? Do you like it? It's amazing. And I would actually, this is me, I would play with the colors to make it even more dazzling. I go over the top with my colors. I'm known for it, but it's an artistic choice. You know, I would really, I'm not sure if I would crop or not. I wouldn't want to lose any of these. This guy coming in from the left is amazing because he's closer, you know, he's closer to you. The others are further away and they're receding. They've got this incredible blur, this beautiful, almost fluorescent look to them. And the background is dark. And that's great, you know, because you want it to be dark because it makes them look even brighter. Would I crop? You've got these lamps. Look, it's a typical Parisian lamp, Alice. In fact, you were just taking a photograph of the lamp and these stupid cyclists got in the way. Apart from that, it's a great photograph for you.
Could it be the speed? Because I was also playing with the speed of the film or whatever. And
oh, the ISO, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh no, maybe no. You probably did you put a low shutter speed, like a second or half a second?
Yeah, I might have.
Yeah. Okay. So that's probably what's happened because the background, these things here.
Yeah.
They're not totally sharp.
Yeah.
And if you focused on them with your camera and you held it reasonably still, they would be very sharp. So what you've done is, rightly, you've chosen a slow shutter speed, you know, not really fast thing, like a tiny bit of a second. You're moving towards a second probably to get the blur of the cyclists. And what happens is when it's a slow shutter speed, you just can't hold it very still. So these are actually a little bit fuzzy. But from this distance, it doesn't matter because they're not really the subject. They look fuzzy, they look sharp enough. And these guys, the most important thing is you chose a shutter speed which make these guys look amazing. You know, it's like vroom, you can really feel the speed, and it's getting almost abstracty. And if you look through the blur of the tires and stuff, the ground here is actually quite sharp.
True.
You know, it's sharp enough to make the blur even more impressive. So this is stunning. This is an amazing photograph. I would love to have this. I would put this on my wall, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, all right. Let's move on. Let's choose a few others. Okay, I'll take any that you would particularly like to talk about from your selection of 40.
Another one of the Tour de France was the car with the helmets on it.
It's right before that one.
Just 1 second.
It's right before that one.
Okay, so that was down. This one here.
Right. Yes, that one.
We'll tell you the story, what it is. It's
okay.
Kind of interesting.
All right. What's the story?
Those were the support cars.
Okay.
And those helmets, biking helmets, were on the support car, but notice they're reflecting the building behind us.
Yes, they are. That's brilliant. Yeah. It's so unusual because this is the firemen, you know, in case there's an accident or something. And
right.
And those are their helmets. French fire helmets are actually silver, bright silver, really impressive. But they've got them in the colors of France. those gorgeous reflections, and you've got the repetition as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well spotted. Yeah, that's marvelous. You know, that's getting the eye. That's getting the eye. You're seeing things that maybe you weren't seeing before, or you're realizing that could be an interesting photograph, and you're taking the photograph. You know, I mean, all of this, it sounds completely obvious, but if you don't take the photograph, you won't have the photograph. So if in doubt,
True.
shoot Parisians. So that is great. Oh, let me pick one or two here. You had a couple of cute ones, in romantic ones, stuff like that. Here it comes. What does that say? Here it says Les cacatois entonnent le charivari des couleurs. It's a line of poetry, a rather nice line of poetry. So tell me about this photograph.
Here, we were in a park, and before that, there were some silver balls in the park with water going over them.
Yeah, that's Palais Royal.
Okay,
Yeah.
walked down, and there was a lady doing paintings, and we got the wrong angle of picture behind her, but we tried that, and then we would just sat down, and these two were in front of us. And it was just very, very cool in a park in Paris.
That is very, very beautiful. Yeah. In terms of composition, you've got the bench is actually, I'd say, slap bang in the middle. You might think it isn't because of the trees, the distance between the trees on the right and the left, but that's false, because if you drew lines, I think it would be completely in the middle. There is another tree. Like you've got the two trees which, hang on, I'm on camera here. You've got the two trees which frame the whole picture beautifully. You come in, you've got one tree which is coming up to the bench on the right there, and the other one is actually behind the bench. But this is this imperfection thing, you see, it's this wabi-sabi. You want a tourist shot, you'd probably want, you know, them to be in the same space on either side. But nature isn't like that. Even forced nature, like the French, they love their square trees. These are square trees, you know, they're cut like this.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's imperfection and slight asymmetry, which makes a shot more magical. But it is more or less. And you've got the two bags on the seat on either side. They're looking towards each other. Their bags are behind their backs, forgotten, because they're interested in each other. You know, it's a beautiful thing. There's a story, you see. There's this story. There's the bird as well, doing birdie things. In that, the bird is filling in that little gap that is missing the tree on the left. Did you notice?
Mm-hmm. Where?
This bird here.
Bird?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
it's over there.
okay.
No, I didn't see that one.
Yeah. So this bird is filling in this space here, which was vacated by an imaginary tree, which would have been here, but in fact is here. That's beautiful. That's great. All right. And there was another very beautiful little shot that you captured, someone captured. Are these all your photographs, Alice?
They're both of ours.
Both of yours?
I mean, they're mixed up.
Okay. Maybe it was in the other group. Yeah, I think it was in the other group. There was a lovely moment captured, which reminded me of some of the classic street photography. It was I think it was kind of taken from above. Where's it gone? Yeah, here it is. So it's this lovely little moment of a family. Tell me a little bit about this.
I think I took 12 pictures of that.
Okay.
And that was the one we
One
chose.
for each pigeon.
Huh?
One for each pigeon.
I guess so. At different angles, including a tree and more visual in the back that you
and why
can't
did you choose this one?
Because
Why choose this one?
it was focusing more on the people and the birds and just that. That's why we chose it.
Yeah, it's easy to complicate things. Very easy. You might, I don't know, you might. So for me, yeah, simplicity is something sometimes much more beautiful, especially if there's a story, the story of this family having a day out feeding the pigeons. Very, very simple, but a beautiful family moment, I guess. And then in terms of the photograph, you've just got the bench and the pigeons. The bench bottom left with the angle, right, is great. And the angle, they're sitting towards, there's plenty of space in front of them where the pigeons are.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the simplest example of this is if you've got a head and it's from the side, I'm not saying should, but it makes more sense for there to be a bit more photograph, even if it's empty, in front of the head than behind.
Yeah.
Because if the frame was like that, their nose would be squashed up against the frame and a big space behind. So basically, if anything is happening, like the subjects here are looking at the pigeons. So it makes sense for the subjects to have their backs towards the edge of the photograph with whatever's happening. So that's basically saying that's great. Another consideration is,
I cut off the bench.
Exactly.
It's like cutting off somebody's finger.
I was waiting for the Sab to say
cut off
that.
the bench.
You could have just moved just a little bit and picked up the end of that bench.
Yes. That's exactly right. I was going to say, if it had been possible, and I don't know because I wasn't there, but if it had been possible, I wouldn't have chopped the bench. If the composition remained nice, if you moved the camera down and to the left to get all of the bench, maybe you would lose the pigeons. I don't know. So as long as it makes sense, I wouldn't have chopped the bench, or I would have gone in closer. Because another thing is, it's not nice to have like the fingers of a hand chopped off by the edge of the picture. This is obviously not nice. But you chop off the whole half the arm, it's less painful to the eye than chopping fingers in half. Do you see what I mean? So if you can't have all the bench in, and this is causing pain, visual pain, then you can go closer. You can go closer. Because people don't really care about the bench.
Mm-hmm.
You might forget that last pigeon. Yeah. Even don't chop this girl or this lady's orange thing. Why chop that? Just go below it. Have this last pigeon here. You can have him in or her in, but going this far out, it's an awful lot of empty space for one extra pigeon.
Right.
So
I would have cut that.
You can still give the pigeon space, this last pigeon space. You don't have to open his backside up against the edge. That's not nice either. So give the lady's pinky dress a bit of space. Give this last pigeon a bit of space. Give this pigeon a bit of space as well, but you could bring it down a little. Give this lady a bit of space behind her back. You could even go like this, you could even get rid of that leg altogether. Keeping that lady's thing. Anyway, just playing. You're just playing, and then if we chopped it there, we're looking at that. I think it maybe loses something. Yeah, it loses something. It's a bit possibly too crushed,
too focused. Yeah,
but it's an option. I like the original as well.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I like that, the purity of it. You've caught a moment. That's what we should be looking for for the non-tourist shots. Look for moments, look for things happening in people's lives, even if they're very simple. Okay, right, let's just take a few more. So these are your chosen ones. Would you like to choose some more that you'd like to talk about?
The clock there.
Okay.
It's probably one we show everyone. I think that's the one. It's hard to tell from here.
This one?
Nope.
Not that one?
Oh, we're missing it.
It's not. One. It's not the one. Sorry. There's one that has might be in the other collection. Oh no, that's the collection. Well,
that's the only one in this collection.
Yeah.
I might have chosen the wrong one then.
Okay, let me just bring the other collection up. I did spot another one somewhere, I think. There? This
No,
one?
nope, it's not
Nope.
there. But it had the Louvre, it had
The Ferris
the
wheel.
Ferris wheel, and Montmartre, all in the same picture.
You could see Sacré-Cœur.
Okay, and so you didn't include that one. All right. Okay.
I thought it was that other one, but
It's
Okay.
very, very similar to the one you had up.
All right,
The-
well, let me make a, you probably chose the right one and then forgot to include it, because there's a couple of issues with these ones that I'll mention. Nice as they are, you know, it's obviously it's an impressive shot. You know, it's a huge shot.
is that it? Yeah, you can see
This is it. Sorry.
the Louvre and the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
You can see
Yeah.
some. Yeah.
Some of Montmartre, not the whole thing.
Well, Montmartre is a bit lost. The Sacré-Cœur is Sacré-Cœur is lost behind this thing here.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's great. How would you improve it, if you could?
How would I improve it?
Yeah.
Have less clock and more of the Louvre and the Ferris wheel.
Okay, maybe. Well, yeah, maybe. It's interesting. The Ferris wheel echoes the circle of the clock, which is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got the spokes of the clock here,
Mm-hmm.
and you've also got the spokes on the Ferris wheel, which is cool. I would just say one thing, and that is, in this case, even though I like angles, there's plenty of angles in the clock. All of these lines are at different angles. But the thing is, the Louvre is kind of a bit weird, not horizontal. It looks like the Louvre is sort of tilting and floating off downstream. You see?
That's true.
Yeah. So when you've got something that, unless there's an artistic reason for it, it's a bit difficult to have a famous building in the distance at a strange angle. You know, it just doesn't, it's not really artistic. So basically, the shot itself is this strong clock. So make sure if there's a building behind it that in this case, it is more or less horizontal with the horizon. Otherwise, it kind of looks a bit perturbing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
These are details that come, you see. You can't think of everything. Because if you're thinking, oh my God, you've got the Ferris wheel, you've got the clock, you know, you're thinking of a million things. Then you're thinking of, you know, aperture and shutter speed and getting the background sharp or whatever. And then there's the lighting to worry about. It's a tricky lighting, subject lighting. Then, you know, there's loads of things. So I love it. I love it. It's just such a crazy thing, you know. Paris seen through this huge clock.
Mm-hmm.
It's Musée d'Orsay. Yeah. Brilliant. Now this one, it's very interesting. You got these sort of, what are they, bells or lights or something? Yeah, they're the lights, aren't they, in the restaurant?
Yeah.
They're shaped like bells, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now this is extremely difficult lighting,
It was.
because to get what's outside the window light, the inside's going to end up being dark. About the only thing you can do for that in the moment is to give it a blip of flash.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give it too much flash, it'll look artificial. So, and you might even blow out the background, make the background dark. So, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, you know, because to be honest, this is a bit like those towers on the church with the spiky bits. It's beautiful as a silhouette.
Yeah.
It's always the whole point, you know, that it's got this amazing silhouette, clock silhouette. And yeah. Okay.
And waiters kept walking by down below, so it was waiting for.
Shoot them. I keep telling you, shoot those stupid Parisians. Shoot them.
Like the white vans.
That we saw everywhere after we left you.
By the way, London is full of them too.
Full of what?
White vans.
Oh, white vans. I thought you said white hands. White vans. Oh my goodness.
The ubiquitous white van that is everywhere.
Yeah.
They were also in London.
The scoundrels. They've invaded Britain as well. The funny thing is, you don't notice them until you stop, until your photography level goes up, and then you start thinking, you know, there's a white van, there's a bin or a trash can, You know, there's a tourist's head. I don't want, you know, that shows that your awareness is going up because you're tolerating things less now that you would have tolerated before.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a bit like me tolerating this horizon, you see. Now it looks like nothing. Hang on. You know, it looks like almost nothing. Most people probably aren't even looking at it. But this is beyond the slightly not horizontal Louvre is beyond my tolerance level now. I notice it.
Well, we could straighten out the picture, couldn't we?
Yeah. You could, yeah. Yeah, you could, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Turn the picture a little bit and crop
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
You can.
Yep.
You can. You end up possibly, hang on, how do I? Oh, yeah. No, it's rotating. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of that. You know, I'm a fan of getting it right as possible when you take the shot, and also you have to crop as well because you've lost bits here.
Right.
But yeah, it's an option. If you love a photograph and there's one thing that's bugging you, often you can, you can do something to.
And it's not a severe crop. You're not losing anything that's really vital in the photo.
No, I don't think so. No. You just got to watch out that all of the corners are still in the photograph. This black bit, do you need this black bit? I don't know, leave it in. This goes down to there. You want to have as much of the clock face in as possible. Nevertheless, image, crop to selection. Yeah, so, you know, it's, yeah, you know, great. I'm less perturbed now. Oh.
About that.
Yeah, I'm gonna sleep a little bit easier now tonight.
Good.
Okay. This is another beautiful moment. This boy with the boat.
Mm-hmm. That was in front of one of the palaces.
Yeah, it looks like it might be Jardin de Luxembourg in front of the Senate maybe. Yeah, that's lovely. And this is it's a perfect example of, you know, the boy is looking at the boat. So the boy is off to the left. There's no wasted space behind him. You don't care what's behind the boy. And the boat is, you know, it's got plenty of space. It's cut a little bit, but you've got a lovely reflection of the boat in the water. Mm-hmm. You've got other boats in the top. Without these boats in the top right, it would be a lot of space which didn't tell much of a story. But because you've got these boats in the top right, it's an echo of his boat. Mm-hmm. So it's lovely, yeah.
This was a burst of pictures, and it was the final picture that came up was his back toward the boat. So I just went back to the burst and found the second one that had his face in it. Otherwise, is all his back.
Yeah, it's beautiful because you see his face. His face isn't the subject of the photograph, really. The subject of the photograph is the story of a boy playing with his boat. So you want it to see that some of his character, but it's not a portrait of him. So you're right, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the boat is as important as his face for sure.
Right.
It could be a silhouette. You know, if you made that photograph black, then it would also be a beautiful photograph. Actually, let me see if I can. How can I do that? You know, you could do all sorts of. There, I didn't want to do that.
Oh.
I didn't want to do that. Sorry, that's a mistake. Undo. I can't undo it. Something horrible's happened. Cancel.
Something horrible's happened.
You could turn it sepia, kind of. Make it look like an old photograph.
Mm-hmm.
You could maybe make it darker as well. That's a little bit too dark. No. Where's the photograph gone? Yeah. And I'm just wondering how I can make it a kind of a silhouette. I don't know. Maybe Colors, hue, saturation, brightness, contrast, and contrast.
Oh, that looks like Andy Warhol.
Yeah, I mean, you can play around if you want to. Anyway.
It's kind of black.
Okay, let's move on. Let's try and fit in a few more. We've been going for an hour, so I think that's pretty good. We'll do a few more. Have you still got time to do a few more?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
You choose.
I choose. Okay, I'll choose kind of at random and just make a comment or two on each, if anything comes to mind.
It's gonna be the shoes.
Yeah, this is weird, isn't it? That looks like looking down from Montmartre.
It is.
Down towards the city with Invalides in the background. Was this taken on the telephone?
It was taken on my the Nikon.
Okay, because the quality seems a bit fuzzy. I'm not quite sure why.
It might be me.
I don't know.
Might have been a little fuzzy that morning.
No, but you might want to check your settings, to make sure the resolution is on a good resolution, and it's saving it in the right format, because it doesn't look to be much detail here. You see, it's not on a Nikon of that quality. This should be crystal clear. This should be razor sharp. Even buildings in the distance should be almost razor sharp. So look at this tobacco line here. You see?
Yes.
So something's going wrong there. That should be sharp. So you need to check. You need to check what's happening there. It might be some sort of setting. Okay. Anyway, the story of the photograph is, well, I don't know. You've got the shoes in, so you've included that in the photograph. Because it's weird. It's strange. Slap bang in the middle, which is quite impressive. I think that's pretty cool. You've got this amazing view. But the view on its own it's impressive, but it's boring because there's no subject. It's just the view. But bam, there's these two shoes, with whatever that might imply, way up high. So that makes the shot interesting. Any comments on that?
That's why we took it. Shoes.
Do you know what this means, these shoes hanging like this?
No.
Well, it's actually, I think it comes from the States, to be honest, or maybe not. But it's you see shoes like this on wires to mark gang territory.
Oh. Okay.
In Paris, it probably isn't. It's just people messing around, because you don't really have too many gangs in areas like this, which is quite touristy. But that's what it's alluding to. It's a gang territory. When you see that in some of the certain areas in certain towns, it means you're entering gang territory. Just watch out.
And in Colorado, we saw them hanging, or Utah, and it was all hiking shoes. So
maybe they were just drying them.
and hiking the mountains, and then they'd hang the shoes, kind of as a monument to what they'd done.
Okay, yeah. Well, these sort of shoes here, they stay there. And then, okay, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's Paris guys trying to be gangsters, but
yeah, could be.
I don't know. It's like French rap. I just never quite get it, but it never sounds as cool as American rap. But anyway, okay. All right, let's go for some variety here. Locks. Okay, you've got two lock photographs here. Let's have a look at the lock photographs. One, and they're quite different. All right, so you've got one lock photograph, the famous locks on the Paris bridges. These love locks. People, the story is people write some message of love on them, lock them onto one of the bridges, and throw the key in the river, which the French police don't always appreciate, because at one point there's a sort of a mountain of keys on either side of the bridge, and they also started destroying the bridges because of the weight of the locks were actually heavier than the bridge. And ended up destroying the parapets and stuff. So you've got one, it's just this mass of locks. And that's one thing to make an impressive photograph. There's no subject as such. The subject is the ton of locks. And then the other way you can go is to choose one lock and try and make it stand out from the rest. And that can be done by its size, by its color. You can have a red heart amongst a whole load of more gold color locks, for example. So it's distinguished by its color and by its shape. You can also distinguish, and this is a classic way, is by having one in focus and the rest fuzzy. And for that, you would need to shoot along the edge of the locks, because if you shoot face on, they're all the same distance from the camera, so they're all going to be sharp, or they're all going to be fuzzy if you can't hold the camera straight. So you need to be shooting along the edge of the locks, so that you focus on one with that famous little spot focusing. You focus on the one you want sharp, like the most interesting one or the most colorful one. Or if they're all colorful, the one that isn't colorful, doesn't matter. The difference, you're looking for the difference. You focus on that, then you recompose with a very small, narrow, wide aperture. In other words, the F number is like 4 or something. So that one's going to be sharp, and going into the distance, can you see what I'm doing with my arm here? Going to the distance, they're fuzzy, and closer to you, they're fuzzy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one was taken with Janie's iPhone.
Great. I mean, it even works with the iPhone, because look, when you're that close to them, the ones even closer to you are a bit fuzzy, and the ones further away are fuzzy. One of the things that increases the depth of field, makes the depth of field smaller, in other words, things get fuzzy faster, is how close you are to the subject that is sharp. So if you're really close to the one that is sharp, very quickly the other ones get fuzzy behind it and in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. And it's pink. You see, it's pink with a funny design, and all the others are just sort of brass color.
Yeah.
And it's kind of down it dominates the bottom right of the photograph, and it's surrounded, framed, if you like, by the others on the top and on the bottom left. It's a frame within a frame. Okay, all of this is things that makes photographs stronger. Brilliant, lovely. And you've got the contrast. You see, you've got the two. One isn't better than the other. It's two ways of seeing the same subject. Which do you prefer? Or
I like that one.
yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, we're still in the ones that you chose as the favorites. Like you've got some ones of still life of meals that you've had by the looks of it.
Mm-hmm.
Great, looking down from up top. This is very pure, this one here. This one has more character and more texture. I'm going to enlarge this one with the wine and stuff. Okay, what were you doing here?
We're having a wine and cheese tasting.
Okay. Actually, I meant, what was your approach to this photograph? But it doesn't matter. Yeah, I can see you.
Remember the first day you did some pictures straight down on the table.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So when we were at this wine and cheese tasting, we tried the same thing to give the idea of what we were doing.
Yeah, and it's funny because photographs, if you do show them, they may be on a screen or on the wall. So you don't expect to see a glass of wine, which is on the wall, coming straight towards you. It's quite strange. So changing the angle, that's the thing, it's not the tourist shot. You're not at the table and you say, let's take a photograph. You're at the table and you say, let's take a photograph.
Mm-hmm.
So you've changed what people expect. And you can almost change it from being a bunch of food and drink to being a strange series of shapes. The top of the glass, it stops being a wine glass, it becomes a red circle. Yeah. Or some, stuff like that. The shape of the bread, I'm looking at the oval of the bread, it reminds me of almonds, sort of thing. Very, very interesting, very nice. Watch out for what you...
And the cheese was quite good too.
Sorry?
And the cheese was quite good too.
Oh my God, yeah, you've got Chev, you've got goat's cheese there, I can see, and you've got some other nice stuff, lovely camembert here. Just when you are doing this, just a tip to make it more impressive. Well, you tell me.
I'd cut off the dish on the left, to the left of the wine glass.
And I'd put the whole knife in.
Yeah, maybe include the end of the knife and the end of the napkin.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not chop the bottom of the breadboard.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
This looks like a foot.
Oh, it might have been.
Can I see your shoes, please? I want to know who the guilty culprit is. Look at this. Look.
Oh, that's
No,
probably.
come in. Look, let's stand up. You see the foot? That's either Alice's or Janie's foot. Yeah. So you know, if you're going to do a still life like that, an abstract still life almost, you know, little by little, eliminate little by little the imperfections. You know, don't put the breadboard equidistant from the top and the bottom of the thing. You know, but then we're getting a problem because you're chopping off more of the knife and the fork.
Well, we'd have to put it all down.
You can move the breadboard up. You know, the breadboard is actually hanging off the edge of the table, so you've got your feet in. But then, you know, there's other stuff on the table as well. So anyway, you know, you could zoom in or lean down more and literally cut bits of everything off. And just have this strange kind of, you know, you're in the middle of the breadboard, which falls off the photo one side, the edge of the wine glass falls off the edge of the photo the other. If everything is cut, it doesn't matter. But if just one thing is chopped on one edge of the photograph, that can be irritating.
We were on a tour, Eat Like a Parisian.
It looks marvelous. Okay, all right. A couple more. I mean, I could go on all night. Yeah. Okay. And here's another. This looks like an experiment in depth of field, which you should be doing, practicing a lot. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so here we go. You've got this one is sharp, this one is less sharp, and this one is even less sharp. Brilliant. It's the best way to, and then you can play around with them. You know, play around with the elements, decide what sort of composition looks nice.
Mhm.
But this is a great shot for the simple reason it shows you what depth of field is and how it works. And if you'd focused on the wine bottle and recomposed, but with that spot focus, you could have the wine bottle sharp and the two glasses in front of and behind fuzzy, you know. And if you focused on the last one, you could have had that sharp. So it shows you can choose exactly what you want to have sharp in any photograph when you use that spot focusing. That's what you need. Okay, and see if there's any other that I'd like to comment on. Any other remarkable ones? Really lovely collection, amazing variety, really good. Dun, dun, dun. Where's this? Is that Paris? No. This green one here.
Giverny, I think.
That was next to the other
Was that
Giverny picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just because it was just the same as the pictures in the gallery in Paris. We went there. It was amazing.
Yeah, it does look beautiful. Yeah, you could hardly not take a beautiful photograph there, I guess. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll leave that. You know, I'm not a.
No.
It's a picture of what you saw, basically. It's difficult to be. It's not the subject to be. You know, to be. You can't do much with it, basically. It's a pretty picture of a pretty place, but not. You know, that's it. That's fine. That's
How about the
left of that?
Left of there. No, right there.
These.
Uh-huh.
I'll also open up this one and this lock here, just to finish on the lock topic, because that's a really good example.
I'm going to sneeze.
Okay.
Just warning you. I've got a cleaning.
How are you doing for time?
We're fine.
We're fine.
You got a few more minutes? Okay.
Have dinner for 2 hours, so.
Okay. All right. Well, it's great to share these with you and for you sharing them with me. All right. So let me just finish on the lock. You see, there's a great example of the lock. This basically has almost everything I said. The lock is bright. The rest isn't. Although there aren't really any other locks. There is a lock. I can see a lock, but it's very, very pale. There's a bit of brightness which actually lightens up the word Paris and the Eiffel Tower, which is beautiful. If you were to crop this, what would you do? How would you crop it? I would crop this. How would you crop it?
Maybe take off the left side more.
Yeah. I would do this, something like this.
Yeah.
Oh, what's happened? Oh my God, no. Oh, I'm in some weird mode there. Okay, I would do this, something like this.
Oh, there's the other lock. You can see over here.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more space there. Maybe bring that a little bit. I move that up, and this, relatively speaking, goes down. Yeah, maybe like that. Maybe. Okay. Image. Yeah. So what's happened here is you've now got the subject, which is bottom left.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got a diagonal echo of this subject, top right.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to see, but there it is. You see.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot clear. It's fuzzy. It's out of focus, which is great because this is sharp. It's smaller than this one, and this one is bigger. It's another difference, but it's complementary because they're both locks. You've got a nice angle between the two of them, and you could even crop it a bit more. Actually, this one here is another lock, but it's not necessarily doing much. You could even crop it tighter. So you've really just got the relationship between these two locks. Maybe you can get rid of that. Yeah. You know, don't be frightened to crop. One of the worst things, especially in tourist photographs, is you just take a photograph of the entire universe and no one's got any idea what they're looking at. So, you know, if the photograph is a picture of a lock, or possibly a lock with another lock, so it's a bunch of locks, you're hinting that it's not the only lock. Well, make the photograph of the lock. You know, people look at the photograph, they say, wow, look at that lock, not, you know, anything else. So you can compare that to the original and you can ask yourself which you prefer, or maybe you want something in between. But the point is, hang on, the original, maybe I can open up the original. I mean, you haven't cropped, you know, it's fine. You've just probably given me the originals, that's fine. But I'm just giving you hints on what you could do. Right, so there's the original.
Mm-hmm.
That's the new version.
Mm-hmm. It brings out the focus of the picture better.
Yeah, I mean, the picture is about locks. Maybe that's too tight. Maybe it's cropped too much. I don't know. But all of this here isn't doing much, you see?
Right.
So you can make the photograph stronger. If the subject is clear, it's clearly the lock. You wouldn't want to lose this because the repetition is very, very strong in photography. You repeat a theme, it's 4 times as strong. It's not twice as strong. But you have to repeat the theme gently, you know, otherwise you're not sure which is the main one. This, you want me to, yeah, this. Any comments on that?
It was just so beautiful, and that's cropped up. That's been cropped.
Yeah, well, it's good. If you've got an abstract subject, really weird subject like this, it gets stronger if you fill the frame with this strange texture. I would just say what's happened here is you're not pointing at the sky, but you're pointing at a mirror reflection of the sky, lots of them. So what's happened is it's underexposed.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was so much light, the camera said, whoa, let's move this down, the exposure down to medium gray. And you know, you've got everything is medium gray, which is a tragedy because this subject is stunning. You know, it's bright, it's mirror reflections of the sky, round mirror reflections. So it needs to be much more like,
Oh, wow.
it's a bit too much. Hang on.
That's more what we saw.
Yeah. It's a bit delicate, you know, it's a bit tricky to get it right because it's so contrasty, but If you go too far, you'll start to lose the detail. But you see all this detail of this reflecting.
Yeah, that's what we saw.
Yeah, it's a shame to lose that.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be, but it's better to do this before you take the shot. So you're looking at something really bright. Either you take the shot and you think it's too dark and you put the exposure up, or or you realize that it's going to be too dark and you put the exposure up beforehand. Yeah. All right. And there's this. This is pretty cool.
It's at an angle, by the way.
That picture was taken for you, Sab. It was for you.
Oh, I didn't even realize it was at an angle until you said that. I see everything. I see everything at an angle, actually. I thought it was yes. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to put angles and everything. It can be too much. Take a really strong. But for example, with something like this, if you do take it straight on, no angle, which most people expect, so some people won't appreciate angles, move over to the edge. That's the other thing to do. If you want to give it a bit of character, not just slap bang in the middle of the passage and you take it, move so that a shoulder is against one of the pillars, then you take the shot. Then you'll have hang on, where my camera? I'm trying to my camera. You'll have, I can't move my hands. Well,
yeah.
you'll have the angle going off to one end. And when you've got something like this, you've normally got a tiny little end doorway or something, the light at the end of the tunnel. And if you manage to position that towards the top right or towards the top left or towards the bottom left or towards the bottom right, the shot will be stronger. Unless you just want a boom straight into the center of the shot. Great, love it. Then you can have your people walking down, or whatever. That's great. Okay, well, I'm sure there's one or two more I'd still love to talk about. You've got the Eiffel Tower there. You've got this, oh, look at that crazy shot of on Facebook. Yeah, play with your environment.
Yeah.
I see the experiments that we did with the water.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the right. Yeah. Oh, you've got this one of Shakespeare. Oh my goodness, there's so many. All right, let me take 3 or 4 more. Then we'll call it a day. All right, this one. So what's happened here? It was a dull day, I think.
And this is out in front, so that's why Shakespeare was included.
Yeah, so the potential is great. What's happened here is I think there wasn't much light, so there was a bit of camera shake there. Because they're both fuzzy, you see.
Mm-hmm.
She's not sharp. You could have Shakespeare sharp and this fuzzy, or the fountain statue sharp and Shakespeare fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want both of them fuzzy, probably. Sorry, you don't want both of them sharp, probably. But you don't want both of them fuzzy either. So maybe it's a case of the camera speed has to be made faster, but maybe there wasn't much light. You could make the ISO, like the film speed, really high. That can give you a faster shutter speed, so there's less camera shake. But it's nice, the composition. You've got the lady top left. I mean, the top left of this photograph is the lady with her arms. And then towards the bottom right, you've got Shakespeare. Great. This is an exercise in depth of field.
Mm-hmm.
So your camera focused on the L or the P, and you had a very narrow depth of field. So it was the F number. The aperture was about maybe 4 or something, or 2.8 or something. Really a low number, which means and you got very close as well. You were very close to those keys, and that makes the background go fuzzy really fast as well. You notice the background goes fuzzier than the foreground.
The foreground also is a little fuzzy.
It goes fuzzy, yeah. But yeah,
line of keys is.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting. It's a good shot to remember that you can do that. And once you've done it once and you know that exists and that it's easy to do, once you've got that very the low F number, you can do it on anything. And you should do it a lot. It just makes those photographs stronger. here's us playing with depth of field and repetition of subject. This was just a test, wasn't it? But it's quite nice. Going off into the distance with a slight angle. And that was that one. This is playing with the environment. Don't hesitate to get people into the shot to do funny things. You can. It's a type of portraiture, urban portraiture. I do take people around Paris sometimes, and we do shots. Like the shots are them. So it's taking funny portraits or beautiful portraits in as many different situations as possible. So that's cool as well. All right. So I think that's probably great. Are there any others? Just have a look at these. Any others you want to comment on? Just looking through these. Lovely variety. That's great. Lots of variety. This is nice. This curvy bit on the left in the middle there. Let me just have a quick look at these others. And when you said you split them into ones you wanted to finalize on, it doesn't mean the other ones aren't good. Of course they are. You can't choose everything. That's the thing. Wow, this is amazing. This looking down here. That is really looking down on all those glasses. Oh, you've got lots more locks here as well. You went mad on the locks, didn't you? That's great.
Locks and lamps.
Yeah. But this is great. You're in the middle, and it's just like I don't know, a bunch of arrows or something coming towards you. Really spectacular. Very impressive.
I couldn't get legs out of there, but
no, but you know what? You're not doing it for a fine art exhibition. It was a moment, and the moment was a bunch of people around a table. So the legs are fine. You've got legs on all the sides. So, it's not like there was one perfect composition, everything was fine, and there's one stray half foot.
Yeah.
It's clear that...
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's clear there was a bunch of people around the table having a nice time. That's fine. That's part of the story. And, okay, any more of these you want to talk about? Oh, the cobbles. This one here is nice, where you've got the lamp fuzzy and the Eiffel Tower sharp. There you go. It's a choice. You choose what you want to be sharp. It's nice to have something sharp and something fuzzy. That's a nice contrast. But you choose what you want sharp and what you want fuzzy. Something like this, the texture of the cobbles. You could use this as a sort of atmospheric piece, in amongst others, or you could even do a double exposure. And you could put a portrait on this background of these cobblestones here. You can do the double exposure. You can do double exposures with the Nikon, and you can also do it with telephones. Actually, with certain applications, you can take two photographs, one after the other. So you could take a photograph of some cobblestones on a double exposure special app. Then you take a photograph of somebody, just their face close up, and you've got the face superimposed on the cobblestones.
What about the painter, that upper right?
Yeah.
That one.
Okay.
With suggestions on where we maybe should have stood instead.
Okay. Okay, we'll make that the last one. Okay. So what do you think?
Well, we didn't want to intrude, but probably we should have gotten closer to get her painting, because she was painting that fountain.
Yes.
Over her left shoulder, maybe? Could we have come over from the left side of her?
That was in the same park as the couple, just beyond where those silver balls were.
Yeah, it's in Palais Royal. Yeah, it's a bit delicate. When you've got human beings, you've got to decide what your approach is. You could ask her, or you've got a good zoom. On both cameras, actually, even a telephone like this, you might have a zoom, but especially on the Nikon, you use your zoom, so you don't have to be right over her shoulder. You don't have to tell her. And a painter is normally engrossed in what they're doing, so normally you can get away with it. Basically, looking at this, I'm thinking, I agree with what you said. I would go closer somehow, even if it's zooming. basically what you want is, you want to see that she's a painter and that she's painting. You want a bit of her painting, and you want the thing she's painting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's a repetition.
Mm-hmm.
It's the repetition of theme plus the person who is creating the copy of the thing. So how to do that? Well, if you zoomed in on her from here, you'd lose the fountain.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would move to more towards just over her right shoulder or just over her left shoulder. I would zoom in because look at the back of her chair is a bit of a mess.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need it. It doesn't tell the story. It's not like it's a bunch of, oily rags and paintbrushes and easel and palettes. No, it's just a bunch of bags and, jackets. So I would get rid of that. You could cut out the top of the chair. If you move in close enough, you cut out the top of the chair and you've just got her head and her painting sort of here, if you imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But you've moved over. So in this space here, you would have the fountain, you see. So I would do something like that. Yeah, you can't get them both with that, but yeah, I'd move around. You don't need this. Zoom in and try and have her and her painting and a bit of the fountain itself. Yeah, yeah. And because you're doing it from behind her back, I doubt that she would know. So, there's not that awkward feeling that they're going to look at you and they're going to get irritated or something and throw baguettes at you. So yeah, brilliant. That's great.
Good.
All right, well, I think we'll call it a day there. That was pretty good. Marvelous. I love talking about your photographs. Wonderful.
Well, we both love hearing suggestions on how to frame them better, not to cut off feet and hands, benches, and
Lighting.
more the angle, the lighting, and more the angle. We learn from you every moment, Sab.
Well, what you can do now is I'm not going to say you can rescue your photographs, but because when they're taken on a high quality camera, including modern telephones, you can do a lot afterwards. You can make them brighter, you can sharpen them, and you can crop. You can't really change the composition, but you can crop, which is kind of similar. So you can do that with some of your photographs. It's the some you love, and you'll like them a lot more. Some of the suggestions I've made, you probably will appreciate some of the, cutting out a lot of the extraneous stuff for a start. So when you're going out into the field now, you can ask yourself, hang on a second, am I going to get home and I'm going to realize that half of this photograph is some boring bush behind the subject back, and you're not going to do that. As you take the shot, you're going to fill much more of the frame with stuff that you want in there. Yeah, and then it's just going forward from here, applying this and taking loads of shots. Just take loads of shots and have fun and eliminate most of them as quickly as you can afterwards. Otherwise, you fill up, the entire thing with all this. So the first day, go home and get rid of. If you took 20 of one thing, then get rid of 19 of them. You only need one. You only need one. You don't need two, slight variations on a theme. No, you just need one. But when you go out, I walk around Paris and I'll come home, even on an unexpected trip, and I'll go home with 20 new shots. And that's not even being particularly serious. I just decide to walk in between 3 or 4 stations instead of taking the train.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing that clicks in. It's like when you get into the zone. If you're in some sort of artistic activity and suddenly you start seeing interesting things everywhere. And yeah, that's how it goes.
Well, you went with us on our entire trip.
That's nice. That's nice. I didn't see any shots of that scooter thing up in the fountain. Did you take a shot of that?
No.
Of what?
The scooter that was up in the fountain.
Oh, yeah. Well, we did. I took a picture of you in front of the fountain with the scooter on top.
Well, that's enough. That's probably enough. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, lovely seeing you again. And I do publish an artistic photograph of Paris every day on Paris Set Me Free and my profile. So, feel free to have a look at them. I'd love you to make comments and, say what you think and share your photographs as well.
All right.
Thank you, Sab.
Thank you, Sab.
And I'll give you a link to where this is so you can look at it again.
Okay.
Would love to.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And see you again in Paris soon, I hope.
Nice.
I hope so.
Okay, bye for now. Bye, ladies. Now, you want to say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Come in.
Bye.
Hope to see you again.
Yeah, you see us in Paris if you come again. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
End broadcast.